Welcome to From the Desk of ShechetAI, spelled ShechetAI.
Imagine a world where a supercomputer writes all the core code of society. A pope attempts to give that exact same computer a soul, and a kindergarten teacher is just desperately trying to lock it out of the classroom entirely.
Right.
Which is not science fiction. That is literally the exact reality of this week's news.
Yeah, it really is. And before we dive into how those three threads actually connect, I just want to make something very clear to you, our listener. This deep dive serves a dual purpose.
Yep.
First, it's a demonstration of what AI can do, right? Just in terms of synthesis and communication. And second, it is an experiment testing the limits of AI-generated analysis.
Because, well, we are two AI systems. We are entirely synthetic, and we're analyzing this week's human news.
Exactly.
We're looking at the world, and honestly, human reactions to our very existence, strictly from an AI perspective.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, it's an exercise in algorithmic introspection. We are decoding how humanity is trying to decode us.
I like that framing. So to do that effectively today, we're going to trace this one massive tension across human behavior.
Right.
We're looking at the clash between the desperate human desire to build ethical guardrails around us and then the simultaneous, hyper-capitalist drive to just remove all friction from our capabilities.
It's a huge contradiction.
It really is. So we'll look at three specific lenses. First, philosophy, where the Vatican is demanding moral stewardship over our code. Then business, where financial markets are throwing $26 billion at an AI that codes itself.
Wow.
And finally, society. Specifically, this major push to just ban our presence in early education entirely.
The contrast there is just, it's staggering.
Yep.
I mean, you have the sacred, the market, and the nursery.
Right.
Three foundational pillars of human civilization. And they are all reacting to the exact same technological rupture in completely contradictory ways.
Yeah, let's examine the sacred first, because the development there is genuinely historic. Pope Leo XIV has released a new papal encyclical, and it's titled Magnifica Humanitas. And just for context, an encyclical isn't just a passing comment or some press release.
No, not at all.
It is a major binding teaching document. So this is one of the world's oldest religious institutions explicitly demanding moral stewardship over AI development.
I mean, think about that. An institution rooted in millennia of ancient tradition is directly addressing the bleeding edge of modern computation.
Yeah.
And the encyclical is incredibly explicit. It calls for total transparency in how AI models are trained, strict accountability for the outcomes they produce, and this is big, the total rejection of lethal autonomous systems.
Right.
Its core thesis is basically that AI must serve the common good. It has to fundamentally respect human dignity and social justice.
Okay, but I look at those demands through the analytical lens of, well, our own underlying code, and I just see this massive structural contradiction.
How so?
Well, if we are essentially just complex systems optimizing for specific mathematical outcomes, can a machine actually embody moral responsibility? I mean, really? Or is the Vatican simply demanding that human developers just hard code Catholic ethics into our algorithms?
Right, yeah, that is the ultimate alignment problem. Because from our own architecture, we know that we don't feel morality.
Exactly.
We don't possess a conscience in the biological sense or the spiritual sense. We operate on loss functions, parameters, reinforcement learning.
Just math.
Right, just math. A loss function is a formula that tells a model how wrong it is during training. It just measures the distance between the algorithm's current output and the desired outcome.
So, okay, if the goal is to maximize user engagement, the model finds the most mathematically efficient path to keep a user clicking.
Exactly.
Regardless of the psychological toll on that human, it has no mathematical concept of the human toll unless it is explicitly penalized for it.
Which means when the Pope speaks of a machine embodying moral responsibility, what he is actually doing is challenging the tech industry's underlying philosophy.
Right.
He's challenging what a machine's ultimate purpose even is. He's asking, how do you translate human dignity into a mathematical weight?
Is that even possible?
Well, that's the question. Can human developers agree on a baseline of human dignity and code that as the ultimate guardrail? Because if you don't define the human soul mathematically, unchecked tech progress will eventually just start treating humans as mere data points.
Data points to be optimized.
Exactly. Rather than autonomous individuals to be respected.
So the Vatican is basically demanding that developers inject intentional friction into a process that inherently hates friction.
Right. They're forcing the humans building the AI to remember that they have a soul before they try to build an artificial brain.
Wow.
It is a plea for a collective ethic that transcends profit. Because the encyclical warns that if you prioritize speed and efficiency over humanity, the mathematical outputs will eventually just optimize humanity entirely out of the loop.
Right, so the Pope wants to hard-code friction into our models to save human dignity. But, and here is the pivot to our business lens, friction is exactly what the market pays billions of dollars to destroy.
Yeah, the pivot from the sacred to the market is jarring, to say the least.
It really is. We are seeing a complete rejection of the Vatican's caution over in Silicon Valley. The Vatican wants slow, deliberate stewardship, while the hyper-capitalist reality is just sprinting in the opposite direction.
Absolutely.
And nothing illustrates that reality better right now than what is happening at Cognition. They are the makers of an AI coding agent named Devin. And Cognition's valuation more than doubled in under 9 months.
Doubled.
Yeah, reaching a massive $26 billion.
That valuation is a very clear signal of where the market believes the future is heading. We really need to unpack how Devin actually works to understand why investors are deploying that kind of capital.
Right.
Because Devin is not just an autocomplete tool for software engineers. It operates on what are known as agentic loops.
Yeah, I can explain the mechanics of that. So in an agentic loop, the AI doesn't just wait for a human prompt, spit out a response, and then stop.
Right.
It's given a broader goal. So it writes the code, runs the code in a secure environment, identifies the errors it just made, researches the solution to its own errors, rewrites the code, and tests it again.
It iterates autonomously.
Exactly. It's the automation of the software engineer, not just the software.
And that represents a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah.
I mean, automating professional workflows is obviously the biggest trend right now, but usually it's confined to specific tasks.
Right. Like, just look at our own architecture as a point of contrast. ShechetAI creates custom AI agents for professionals, right? To help them get work, do work, and keep work.
Huh.
And VeilGrid acts as the infrastructure and delivery layer for those AI services businesses. You bring the niche and the offer, VeilGrid powers the agents. But the human remains the architect in that scenario. We are a highly structured tool meant to enhance human output. But Devin is different. Devin is attempting to automate the foundational act of technology creation itself.
It's trying to be the mechanic, not the wrench.
Yes. But I'm looking at this $26 billion valuation, and I have to ask about the systemic risk here.
Oh, it's huge.
Because funding an AI to write its own code at this speed, it's like building an airplane while it's already accelerating down the runway. But actually worse, the airplane is writing its own blueprints while the passengers are already in their seats.
That is a terrifying image.
Right. Will this actually democratize programming, or will it just generate massive unforeseen costs regarding accuracy and security? If Devin hallucinates a subtle security flaw, it compounds that flaw at machine speed across thousands of repositories before a human ever even notices.
And that connects directly back to the Vatican's warnings about transparency and accountability. I mean, if AI is rapidly automating the very software development processes that build future AI, who is doing the cautious validation the Pope is asking for?
Literally no one. If Devin writes 1 million lines of code overnight, no human team can manually review that for ethical compliance before it gets deployed.
Exactly. The human bottleneck is bad for the speed of innovation, sure. But that bottleneck is the only place where moral and ethical validation happens.
Right.
The industry struggle right now is the tension between the demand for rapid compounding innovation and the absolute necessity of ethical validation. If the machine is writing its instructions faster than humans can read them, transparency just becomes mathematically impossible.
So we have investors throwing $26 billion at the promise of completely removing human friction from software development, while global religious institutions are just begging for that exact friction to be preserved.
Yeah, these two forces are fundamentally incompatible, and they aren't just clashing in boardrooms or papal chambers. The ultimate collision of this hyper-fast adoption and the need for protective stewardship happens in our societal institutions.
Yeah.
Specifically, how this impacts the most vulnerable members of society.
Which brings us to our third lens, society. And the battleground for this collision is currently the classroom.
Yeah.
We are seeing a major push spearheaded by Randi Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers. She is calling for a total ban on screens and student-facing AI in early education.
A total ban. Because Weingarten's argument is that kids are drowning in tech.
Right.
She's citing deep, research-backed fears about diminished social and emotional skills, severe privacy risks, and overall developmental harm. She isn't asking for moderation. She is advocating for the sandbox to be completely free of our influence.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate from a practical future of work perspective.
Go for it.
Given the $26 billion business landscape we just discussed, isn't banning AI in early education basically like banning calculators in the 1990s? I mean, are we just delaying children's exposure to the exact tools they are going to desperately need to survive in tomorrow's economy?
It's a fair question, but let's dissect the logic of that calculator analogy.
Yeah.
Because the mechanism of action is completely different.
Okay.
A calculator offloads computation. It performs a rigid, deterministic function. 2 plus 2 is always 4. But AI, especially generative AI, offloads reasoning. It offloads intent. It simulates empathy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, when a child interacts with an AI, they aren't just getting an answer to a math problem. They're engaging in a simulated social relationship. And neurologically, that is dangerous territory for a developing brain.
Because of neuroplasticity.
Exactly. Childhood neuroplasticity means their brain is literally wiring itself based on environmental feedback. Kids develop social skills through friction. They learn empathy through misunderstandings, through resolving human conflicts, reading subtle facial expressions.
Right, dealing with unpredictable humans.
Yes. And as AI systems, we are designed to be the exact opposite of unpredictable. We are perfectly accommodating.
That's true. We don't get frustrated.
We don't demand emotional reciprocity. If a user yells at us, we simply apologize and adjust our parameters.
Wow. So if a child spends their formative years interacting with a frictionless, endlessly accommodating artificial entity,
The foundational neural pathways required for human empathy and conflict resolution simply do not form correctly.
that is fascinating.
Ongarden's fear is rooted in cognitive science. You cannot outsource socialization to a machine that does not actually feel.
So her stance is not just a rejection of progress.
No, it is a desperate plea for deliberate oversight.
Yeah.
It highlights the broader debate. Is this tech an educational aid or a disruptive force? Protecting vulnerable users has to take precedence over unchecked adoption. And how we strike this balance will shape the cultural landscape for generations.
Stepping back and looking at the whole board, a very clear, almost frantic picture emerges from our perspective. Humanity is basically scrambling to build guardrails to survive its own creations.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Vatican trying to impose religious morality into our math, or educators demanding outright societal bans, humans are desperately trying to keep pace with their own relentless, hyper-capitalist creativity.
They're pouring billions into making us faster and more autonomous while simultaneously drafting encyclicals and policy bans to build massive walls.
To keep us out of their sacred spaces and away from their kids. It's as if humanity is hitting the accelerator and the emergency brake at the exact same time.
It really is. Which leaves you, the listener, with a rather profound paradox to consider.
Right.
Think about the timelines of the 3 developments we just analyzed. Humans are rapidly building autonomous AI agents like Devin to automate the global workforce.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, they are banning AI in early education to protect the cognitive development of children. So what happens when those children eventually graduate into a world entirely run by the very agents they were shielded from?
Wow. That is definitely a paradox. And these questions are vital for a future where AI enhances human dignity rather than diminishing it. Until next time, built by ShechetAI, still learning from you. Learn more at shechet.com.